Black intern greeted a deaf visitor. In sign language, not knowing the CEO, the marble lobby of Reynolds Corporation gleamed like a palace of perfection. Every corner reflected wealth, every polished surface whispered of power. Yet beneath the shine, the atmosphere carried something darker, an air of exclusion, carefully disguised as professionalism. At the reception desk, a man in a tailored suit struggled to communicate. His hands moved rapidly, shaping words in the silent language he had mastered. But the receptionist, with a tight smile and a tone of irritation, shook her head. "I'm sorry, sir, I don't understand what you're trying to say." Her voice carried the impatience of someone who viewed difference as an inconvenience. The man's shoulders slumped, his gestures slowing as the familiar weight of rejection pressed down on him. To be unheard was not new, but it was no less painful. Across the lobby, Jasmine Williams balanced a tray of overpriced coffees, each cup marked with the names of executives who barely remembered hers. She had been an intern for 3 months now, long enough to learn the unwritten rules of corporate life. Smile without meaning it, serve without complaint, and above all, never disrupt the smooth rhythm of the machine. But something inside her shifted when she saw the man's silent plea. Without a second thought, she set the tray aside and walked toward the reception desk. Her hands rose gracefully, each movement precise and fluid, as if she had rehearsed them all her life. "Hello, sir. Can I help you?" The man's face lit up instantly, relief flooding his expression. His gestures responded quickly, full of gratitude. "Thank you. I thought no one here would understand me." The lobby froze. Conversations stopped mid-sentence, footsteps slowed, and dozens of eyes turned toward the unexpected scene. An intern speaking sign language fluently in a place where kindness rarely interrupted protocol. Jasmine's heart raced, but her hands never faltered. She translated with ease, giving the man a voice where none had been offered. For him, the moment was like a light breaking into darkness. For Jasmine, it was instinct, a refusal to let yet another injustice pass unnoticed. What Jasmine did not see was the tall figure who had just stepped out of the executive elevator. Lawrence Reynolds, the CEO himself, stood watching. His grey eyes, often described as sharp enough to dismantle senior executives in a single glance, now focused on her with something different, curiosity, even recognition. But not everyone in the lobby shared that respect. From across the room, Victoria Sterling, supervisor of the marketing department, narrowed her eyes. She watched Jasmine's movements, not with admiration, but with resentment, her lips tightening as jealousy bloomed. For someone like Victoria, genuine talent was a threat, and compassion was an unforgivable weakness. The air shifted. What began as a small act of kindness was about to ignite a chain of events that no one could have predicted. For Jasmine, this moment was not only a test of courage, but the beginning of a storm that would change her life and the company's future, forever. Well, isn't this touching?" The sharp, sarcastic voice sliced through the silence of the lobby like a blade. Every head turned as Victoria Sterling approached, her heels striking the marble floor with a rhythm that sounded more like a countdown than footsteps. Her expression carried that polished smile of superiority that hid venom underneath. Jasmine felt her stomach tighten. She had seen this look before, the kind insecure people wore when they were about to humiliate someone in order to protect their own fragile sense of power. "Playing professional interpreter, are we?" Victoria's voice dripped with mockery. "How adorable." The receptionist, who had failed to help the visitor, smirked quietly at Victoria's remark. Around them, employees lingered, sensing drama. Nothing spread faster in corporate life than the promise of a public shaming. Jasmine swallowed hard, but stood her ground. "I was only trying to help. He needed—" "That's enough," Victoria interrupted sharply, her eyes narrowing. "We have protocols here. Interns do not interpret for clients. That is the job of certified professionals." The deaf man looked between the two women, his confusion written across his face. He could not hear the words, but the hostility was unmistakable. Jasmine quickly translated his side of the conversation. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean to cause trouble." "Exactly," Victoria sneered. "You've been here 3 months, Jasmine, and already think you're indispensable. Ambitious, aren't we? She spat the word ambitious like it was an insult. The crowd shifted uneasily. Some frowned at Victoria's cruelty, but none dared to speak. Jasmine's pulse hammered, but instead of breaking, her voice grew steady. With respect. I wasn't showing off, she replied softly. I was simply helping. Victoria's laugh echoed through the lobby. Helping? Honey, you're an intern. Your job is to fetch coffee, make copies, and stay invisible until you earn the right to be noticed, not to draw attention with little hand tricks. The receptionist chuckled under her breath. A few others pretended not to watch but leaned closer anyway. Jasmine glanced at the man beside her, whose gentle eyes seemed to say, "Don't let them silence you." He signed carefully. "You don't have to apologize for kindness, thank you." Jasmine translated his words, and for the first time, the crowd reacted with discomfort, some shifting awkwardly, realizing how harsh Victoria's tone truly was. But Victoria either didn't notice or didn't care. She was intoxicated by the sound of her own authority. "Dramatic," Victoria scoffed, rolling her eyes. "Now, Jasmine, go back to your actual duties. Leave professional matters to professionals." Jasmine paused, then did something no one expected. She turned back to the visitor and signed smoothly, her gestures filled with sincerity. "Sir, it was an honor to help you. I hope you find exactly what you're looking for at this company." Her fluency silenced even Victoria for a brief moment. These weren't rehearsed gestures. They were natural, lived, and deeply human. The man smiled broadly, his hands responding quickly. "You sign beautifully. I have a meeting with the CEO today about an accessibility project." Gasps rippled through the lobby. Victoria's eyes flickered with panic as she realized this wasn't just another visitor. This man was important. "Well," Victoria began, trying to recover, "I'm sure Mr. Reynolds will arrange a proper interpreter for such a meeting." "Actually," a deep, commanding voice cut through the air, "I believe we've already found the perfect interpreter." The entire lobby turned. Lawrence Reynolds, the CEO, stepped forward, his presence filling the space with authority. His eyes locked on Victoria, whose face went pale, and in that instant, the entire balance of power shifted. The room seemed to shrink as Lawrence Reynolds approached, his voice calm yet edged with unmistakable authority. "Mr. Reynolds," Victoria stammered, her confidence cracking for the first time. "I was only explaining the company protocols." "Protocols," Lawrence repeated slowly, his grey eyes fixed on her. "Or was it public humiliation of an employee who demonstrated competence and kindness?" The crowd's silence deepened. No one dared to move. Victoria's lips parted, but no sound came out. She hadn't expected the CEO to have witnessed everything. "Jasmine," Lawrence said, his gaze now softening, "join me and Mr. Martinez for the meeting. It seems you are exactly the person we need." The visitor, Diego Martinez, though Jasmine didn't yet know his name, smiled gratefully. Jasmine, still stunned, nodded slowly. She felt the weight of every eye on her as she stepped toward the elevators. Lawrence's voice followed, firm and deliberate. "Victoria, my office. 1 hour. We need to talk about leadership and protocols." The sharp click of his words struck harder than any scolding could. Victoria's face burned red as whispers spread through the lobby. She tried to maintain her composure, but the cracks in her pride showed. As the elevator doors closed, Jasmine exhaled for the first time in what felt like hours. Relief mingled with disbelief. She had been prepared for reprimand, maybe even termination. But instead, she was being escorted to a meeting with the CEO himself. Inside the executive office, time seemed to slow. The walls were lined with sleek wood panels, bookshelves filled with leadership volumes, and awards that reflected the company's prestige. Lawrence gestured for Jasmine and Mr. Martinez to take a seat. For the next 2 hours, the conversation unfolded in ways Jasmine could never have imagined. Mr. Martinez, she learned, wasn't just a visitor. He was Diego Martinez, founder of the nation's largest accessibility organization. He was there to evaluate Reynolds Corporation for a multi-million-dollar partnership on corporate inclusion. "Your interpretation was flawless," Diego signed to Jasmine, his gestures smooth and precise. But more importantly, you conveyed the intent behind the words, not just the signs. That is rare. Jasmine blushed slightly, translating his praise aloud for Lawrence, who watched with keen interest. "Mr. Martinez is right," Lawrence said, leaning forward. "You understood more than the language. You understood the heart of the communication. That matters." It was then that Jasmine noticed something she hadn't expected. Lawrence's hands moved slightly, shaping small, familiar gestures. He wasn't fluent, but he could sign at a basic level. He had understood more of the lobby exchange than anyone realized. You know sign language?" Jasmine asked, momentarily forgetting her role as interpreter. Lawrence nodded, his tone softening. "Not well. My daughter Sarah taught me. She was deaf. She passed away 3 years ago." His voice caught briefly before he continued. "She used to say that true communication isn't just about words, it's about souls. Seeing you today reminded me of her." The weight of his confession filled the room with silence. Jasmine felt her throat tighten. She quickly interpreted for Diego, who nodded with quiet respect. "This project," Lawrence continued, "is not just about compliance or public image. It's about making sure no one, like Sarah, like your brother, ever feels invisible." Jasmine froze. "My brother?" Lawrence's lips curved into a half smile. "Danny Williams, 17, captain of his school's basketball team, scholarship in graphic design. I did my homework, Jasmine." Her breath caught. The CEO of Reynolds Corporation not only knew her name, but also her family's struggles. She had spent months hiding her reality, working part-time jobs, balancing bills, and protecting her brother from prejudice. And now, it was all laid bare before the most powerful man in the company. But instead of embarrassment, she felt something different in his gaze. Respect. Diego watched carefully, then signed something that made Jasmine's pulse race. "Would you consider leading Reynolds Corporation's new accessibility program? Not as an intern, as a senior consultant." Her hands trembled as she translated the words aloud. "Senior consultant? With a salary, an office, and the freedom to hire your own team," Lawrence added. "What do you say?" Jasmine's world tilted. A few hours ago she had been carrying coffee trays. Now she was being offered authority, respect, and a chance to create real change. And far below in her office, Victoria Sterling was already planning her next move, furiously typing emails meant to destroy Jasmine before she could rise any higher. Jasmine sat frozen in her chair, trying to process the impossible offer. Just hours ago she had been invisible, an intern fetching lattes blending into the background. Now she was being asked to lead an accessibility program that could reshape the entire company. I don't know what to say," Jasmine whispered. "Say yes," Diego signed, smiling warmly. But before Jasmine could answer, Lawrence leaned forward, his expression more serious. "Before you decide, you need to understand something. Victoria Sterling won't accept this quietly. She will fight back." Jasmine tilted her head. "Fight back how?" "Emails to the board, rumors about favoritism, attempts to embarrass you in public meetings." Lawrence's voice carried the tone of someone who had seen corporate wars play out many times before. "She thrives on intimidation, and she hates losing control." Diego signed quickly, his gestures sharp and deliberate. "He wants to know if you're prepared for a war." Jasmine took a long breath. Then, with a calmness that startled both men, she answered, "Yes, more than prepared." Her eyes sharpened. "For 2 months, Victoria has been spreading rumors about me. I've documented every insult, every attempt to undermine me, every discriminatory remark she thought no one was listening to." Lawrence frowned, intrigued. "Documented?" Jasmine reached into her bag and pulled out a small digital recorder. 47 hours of conversations, meetings where she called interns like me quota hires, whispered comments about my skin color, instructions to ignore my requests for information. The air in the office grew heavy. Lawrence leaned back in his chair, impressed. Diego raised his brows, his fingers signing slowly. "Why record everything?" "Because when you grow up underestimated, you learn that evidence is your only shield," Jasmine explained. My brother taught me that. Danny records every interaction with teachers who doubt him because of his deafness. Outrage fades, but proof is permanent. For a moment, both men were silent, absorbing the steel hidden beneath Jasmine's calm exterior. Impressive, Lawrence finally said. You've been underestimated by everyone here, including me, and you've turned that into strength. Jasmine's lips curved into a small, knowing smile. Victoria assumes people like me don't know how to defend ourselves. She's about to find out how wrong she is. Diego clapped softly, his eyes gleaming with admiration. Brilliant. You've already strategized before the battle even began. Lawrence leaned forward again. So, do you accept our offer? Jasmine hesitated only briefly. Yes, but on one condition. Lawrence's brow arched. Which is? That I have complete autonomy in dealing with Victoria. No interference, no micromanagement. Let me handle her in my own way. A slow smile spread across Lawrence's face, the kind that had built an empire. Agreed. As the hiring paperwork was being prepared, none of them realized that across the building, Victoria was already accelerating her schemes. Her fingers flew across her keyboard, typing an email to the city's most influential corporate newspaper. Subject: Insider Tip: Racial Favoritism Scandal at Reynolds Corporation. She hit send, confident she had just set the perfect trap. What Victoria didn't know was that she had declared war against someone far more prepared than she ever imagined. And Jasmine was ready. The following morning, tension buzzed through Reynolds Corporation like static in the air. An urgent board meeting had been called, and whispers traveled quickly through the halls. Victoria had something big to expose. In the executive conference room, polished mahogany reflected the anxious faces of board members. At the head of the table, Lawrence Reynolds sat with his usual composure, his hands folded. To his right sat Jasmine, no longer the overlooked intern, but newly appointed senior consultant. Her calm presence made Victoria's lips curl with fury. Gentlemen, Victoria began, her voice smooth but brimming with venom. I've called this meeting to address a very serious concern. A clear case of favoritism is jeopardizing our corporate integrity. She turned dramatically, pointing at Jasmine as if exposing a criminal. This intern was promoted to senior consultant overnight. No qualifications, no experience, only favoritism. We all know certain hires are made based on quotas, not merit. The room went uncomfortably still. A few board members exchanged glances, unease spreading across their faces. Lawrence leaned forward, his voice deceptively mild. Favoritism, Victoria, that's a serious accusation. Do you have proof? Proof? Victoria snapped. The proof is in plain sight. Look at her, 3 months fetching coffee, and suddenly she's given an office and authority. This is nothing more than political correctness gone mad. Jasmine's lips curved into a serene smile. She reached into her bag and placed a small recorder on the table. Actually, she said softly, I think the proof is in here. Victoria froze. You can't. Oh, but I can, Jasmine replied smoothly, pressing play. The speakers crackled to life with Victoria's own voice. These diversity interns are all the same, hired to fill quotas. They know nothing, yet think they deserve promotions. Faces around the table hardened. Another recording followed. People like her should stay in their place, no matter how many nice gestures she makes. An intern is an intern, especially those who come from you-know-where. Victoria's complexion drained. She lunged forward, trying to shut off the recorder, but Jasmine calmly slid it out of reach. There's more, Jasmine continued, her tone icy. 47 hours of conversations, 23 discriminatory remarks based on race, 31 derogatory references about employees who don't know their place, and 8 instances of you deliberately instructing others to sabotage my work. The silence in the room was crushing. Board members stared at Victoria with open disgust. This is a setup, Victoria shrieked, her voice cracking. She twisted my words. Lawrence stood slowly, his presence filling the room like a storm. Enough. In all my years running this company, I have never seen such a blatant pattern of toxicity. Victoria Sterling, you are terminated, effective immediately. The doors opened. Diego Martinez entered with 2 reporters and a camera crew. "Sorry to interrupt," he said smoothly, "but since this meeting concerns inclusion, I thought it might be useful for our accessibility project to record it." Victoria's face went white. Her exposé had just backfired in the worst possible way. Her downfall was being documented for the world to see. Security arrived. Lawrence's final words were delivered like a verdict. "Victoria Sterling, pack your things, and for your own sake, I suggest you hire a lawyer." As she was escorted out, her protests echoing down the hall, Jasmine remained seated, her expression calm, not triumphant, not petty, only satisfied. Justice had been delivered. The headline hit the city by afternoon, splashed across newspapers and buzzing on every corporate blog. "Executive fired for systematic discrimination. Recordings reveal months of racist comments at Reynolds Corporation." Victoria Sterling's downfall was no longer just office gossip. It was public record. Her carefully constructed reputation crumbled overnight. Colleagues who once laughed at her jokes now deleted her number. Influential friends vanished as if she carried a plague. Within months, her penthouse was sold to cover mounting legal fees, and the woman who once commanded entire departments now worked quietly in a small-town accounting office, barely able to afford rent. Meanwhile, Jasmine's star rose higher than anyone could have predicted. Her accessibility program, once a small proposal, had grown into a full division. Contracts poured in as companies across the nation sought to replicate Reynolds Corporation's model. The quarterly board report stunned even Lawrence himself. "Revenue from the accessibility division has increased by 340%, he announced. "But more importantly, our culture has transformed." Diego Martinez, now an official partner, grinned with pride. Jasmine didn't just build a program, she started a movement. Other corporations are copying her strategies nationwide. Jasmine's office, glass walls, panoramic city view, her name etched in gold on the door, was a daily reminder of how far she had come. Her brother, Danny, often visited, his eyes sparkling with pride as he signed, "Remember when I told you that one day they'd see? You proved me right, but you didn't just show them your worth, you redefined what worth means." By then, Jasmine had become a sought-after speaker. Her TEDx talks on turning discrimination into opportunity reached millions. Universities invited her to guest lecture. Business schools studied her department as a case study in modern leadership. Even Lawrence himself had been changed by her presence. In honor of his late daughter, Sarah, he launched the Sarah Program, a scholarship for marginalized youth interested in communication and accessibility. Jasmine personally reviewed every application, ensuring that no promising student was overlooked. "Do you know what I've learned?" Lawrence said to her one afternoon, gazing out over the skyline. "My daughter's voice lives on. Through this work, through you, I know she didn't die in vain." The company became a magnet for talent, not because of quotas or empty slogans, but because it now lived by Jasmine's principle: true inclusion creates excellence. And what of Victoria? From her small-town apartment, she sometimes searched Jasmine's name online, only to find another award, another keynote speech, another headline praising the woman she had once tried to destroy. The realization stung deeply. Jasmine had always been what Victoria could never be: genuinely talented, strategically brilliant, and morally unshakable. Jasmine's quiet revenge was never about vengeance. It was transformation. She had not just defeated one toxic executive, she had rewritten the standards of an entire industry. The lesson was undeniable. When prejudice tries to silence someone, it may end up amplifying the very voice it sought to erase. Jasmine Williams had proven that the best revenge is not cruelty returned, but unstoppable success. Success so undeniable, it makes future attempts at minimization irrelevant. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button for more emotional, dramatic and unexpected tales. And let us know in the comments, where in the world are you watching from? We love hearing from all of you. Until next time, stay kind, stay curious and keep watching. Yes.